Welcome to Political Alchemy. Today we're going to touch on a subject, it's a difficult subject, racism in America. Something that has been going on for as long as this country has been founded, sadly. I'm going to open up the floor. Who'd like to grab this one first? Do you fancy this?
Sure.
Go for it.
You know, it comes up a lot for Trump that, you know, that's one of the reasons he won. And I think that's one thing that he did early on was cater towards the racism vote. When you had 14 different Republicans plus or minus running, that was an audience that they weren't catering towards, and he catered towards them easy and got directly and got his momentum started there. But that's not why he won. There's many reasons why he won. That's another whole topic. But we still have an issue with racism in this country. You know, in every state, some states are better than others. It's not a topic I'm really an expert on, but it's something that has come up due to the Trump winning and the Trump running for government that has opened this sore again, that has people talking about it again, which is a good thing. If we don't talk about it, people don't realize it's still an issue in this country. I know in Colorado here, we are, you know, we're not that racially diverse here in Colorado, so it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. But it is still a big problem in this country, more so in some states than others, and we need to talk about it. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing.
I guess I really think until the white men who have historically run the country acknowledge it to the rest of the world, I just don't think we're going to move forward. It's racism, but it's also racism and inequality in general. I mean, but I think the basis of all of our problems have something to do with racism. You know, from everything from the oil issues that we have to Wall Street, everything.
Standing Rock.
Standing Rock, yeah.
It's part of the thing. If you cannot respect another human being
right.
on something as trivial as you look different than me.
Yep.
If you can't respect another human being on such trivial terms, how are you going to respect anybody else? Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter. It's not a matter of people being okay with other people, but it's caring about them in a certain kind of way as you are an equal. Mm-hmm. Not someone to be manipulated, not someone to be taken advantage of. The only reason you're good for anything is because I can make a profit off of you. Mm-hmm. When we have that as kind of the basis of how our society is put together, we are on a bad course, an extraordinary course. And the other thing that people don't have is they don't have a sense of empathy. They can't empathize with somebody who is in the position of, let's say, being black and being in the position of, I just had a friend of mine who was accosted by the police, 2 weeks ago. Oh, that happened to me as well. And the white people stand around and they go, well, that's not such a big deal. Well, it's not such a big deal because you're not empathizing with it. If you were in that position, if you actually experienced that, you'd be someplace else. Just a personal example for myself. I never knew a black man until I was about 21, 22 years old. I started singing professionally. I was a stand-up singer in front of a jazz group, and that was the first time I was ever with black people socially or even as close as this, right? We would go out for coffee after work. It'd be 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And you'd go in and there'd be like maybe 10, 15 people in the place. You'd go in and it would take 10 minutes before anybody would come over and give you water. And then you go, well, did they just not see us? Or just what was going on? And I never felt that there was ever any kind of prejudice or bigotry here in Colorado. But then you started seeing things like this, and you're going like, wait a minute, And then you start to get a sense of what it's like to empathize with that. We really don't know. Being white and having lived in a white community, we don't understand. Mm-hmm. We literally do not understand. And what makes it really bad is you have the white male, who's many of them are sitting there and going like, well, I raised myself up by my bootstraps. You should do the same, you know? No, you don't get it. When you've been beat down, beat down, and then you have in your hereditary emotional background, your people were living on a continent, probably away from the ocean, when these white bastards showed up, put us into chains, put us into a ship. We've never even seen the ocean before. It's black, it's pitch black. They get out on the other side. They are ripped apart from their families, from the people they love, husband and wives. And you don't think that doesn't leave some kind of a mark?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we have these white people saying, oh, well, these black lives don't matter, playing word games on them.
Well, I think it's always interesting to sit on a panel of 5 Caucasian people and pontificate on this. I mean, I hope there's another episode where we actually have, people of color coming to talk about this. But you're right, back to your experience of, when you walk into a restaurant with your African American friend or with, a Hispanic friend, and all of a sudden you don't get served a meal and you're sitting and waiting. I mean, it's just you start to get an ounce of empathy, right? You go, oh, is this what it's like every day? No, it's actually worse. And I actually, we talk about a lot of issues at the state capitol. I mean, there's economic inequality. There are, struggles with everything from addiction to education. These really huge issues. And a friend of mine put it this way. She said, if we just focus on those big issues, we will never get to the issue of racism, because those issues are so big they will always overshadow that. And so it's something that I try to be more conscious about. And I think it's really important not to put people on the defensive, but to challenge, where they are about things. So, calling someone racist is just sort of seen as this pejorative political term now. But to say, wow, when you said that, I noticed that, my friend wasn't, didn't seem as comfortable. We were talking about putting on a fundraiser one day for an event, and, someone said, oh, we should definitely get more Latin American folks there. We could do a dance party. They'd love that. It's like, well, I don't know how comfortable I feel with that statement, and it's tough to challenge your friends on these things. And it is, when the Black Lives Matter movement first started, I was actually at Netroots Nation last summer, and Bernie Sanders was there, and Martin O'Malley, who was also running for president. It's very interesting. Martin O'Malley, when the Black Lives Matter activists sort of started chanting and interrupting his speech, he said, no, all lives matter. And, they even got louder. And it took me a second to sort of understand this, but, it's the sentiment or the belief that Black lives matter too. And what does that really mean? When Bernie Sanders got up there and he got interrupted, he said, no, I'm going to solve your problems. He talked over them, actually, and said, no, this is an economic issue. This will fix your situation too. And it fundamentally misses the point of it. And this is the hardest thing, but it takes time. You almost have to take a one-down approach. You have to listen, and you have to be willing to be able to stand side by side with people without being afraid of what's going to happen to you. And I mean this very seriously now with the DACA Act potentially going away, and kids who have been here, adults who have been here since they were kids, potentially being deported. How many people are willing to throw themselves on those gears? If immigration officers come, are you willing to stand in the way? Are you willing to house somebody who, by all rights, should be here? Are you going to say, well, that's a legal issue, we'll let the legal system work it out? I mean, I've probably got more thoughts on this than I do good ideas, but it's something that if we don't pay credence to it, if we don't recognize how it affects every element of our discourse, from Facebook and Twitter to the laws that we write, we're not gonna move forward on these things. So, like I said, I really hope that in future segments we can actually get people who are people of color to come and talk about their experiences.
Yes. I mean, when you look at the movement, Black Lives Matter, a lot of the problems stem from the fact that your police are just not trained. I read somewhere that when it comes to situations like that, American police typically have 1, 2, 3 days of training for those sorts of situations, whereas in Europe it'll be 2 or 3 weeks to deal with that type of situation.
That's part of it. It's interesting. I was actually, it's interesting. As a Democrat, I was endorsed by the Fraternal Order of Police, and they aren't afraid of more training. I think we actually do a pretty good job in Colorado in terms of having a post board that really looks at issues from top to bottom. But this is something more ingrained than just training.
Yeah.
This is something that goes very deep. It's coded in all of our heads by about the time we're age 5 or 6. And it's not to make anyone feel guilty, other than to say you need to recognize, what predilections you might have, what thoughts you might have in a snap judgment, and how you can take a step back. I mean, and whether you're a police officer, regardless of who you are, and I think the body cam issue, our Weld County Sheriff in Colorado said, oh, we don't need those. I mean, the first thing that I think body cams have really done is just shown a very distinct light when we tell, people from communities of color, oh, just follow orders and you'll be fine. Well, no, that's not the way it really works.
No.
And okay, now that we know that, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? Part of it might be training, but this is something that's just genuinely ingrained in all of us to a certain level. We're all sort of imbued with certain beliefs, and we need to be willing to challenge those.
I
Yes.
had an experience in a nearby city, I won't say where, but I was serving juvenile delinquents. And one of my black clients said that every time he walked down the street, he would get stopped and frisked. Every time he went in Walmart, Kmart, any of those stores, he would get accused of shoplifting. And so I went on a ride-along with the police department, and I said to this officer that was giving me the ride-along, how many officers do you think are prejudiced, racist? He said about half. So I think we have to do a better job of hiring people who aren't prejudiced, who aren't racist, who won't do the wrong thing. And training would help. But I think what you're saying is we're raised in such a way we need to make sure that we weed out those people who are going to do the wrong thing.
So basically, it should be education of what's happening.
And maybe just making sure that we are hiring the right people.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm all,
Last words?
I'm all for tougher hiring practices. Even law enforcement wants to weed out bad actors of all kind. They give the whole profession a bad name.
A bad name. The old one bad apple.
Right, right, and I think but it doesn't. We can't just point fingers at law enforcement. We need to be able to be introspective on our own side and be
Yeah.
willing to challenge these by actually spend a day with the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. Spend a day reaching out to a protester on the street and say, why are you out here today? What role do I play in this? And those are not easy questions to be asking.
Right. Thank you all. Political Alchemy will be back.